has gathered together, they found they'll be arrested. Thank God, not in America yet. But across the world, there are places where if you're found, you will be arrested. You know, it's getting harder and harder in America. But God's still God, and He's still coming. How many believe Jesus is still coming? Hallelujah. He's still coming. You know, what is it? Wednesday we celebrate the 4th of July. Our independence. And we have been a privileged people, folks, to have been born and raised in America. It's been a privilege and an honor to live in a country that's been free for all these years. But see, soldiers, we've had soldiers that kept us safe from foreign enemies. But it takes, the soldiers can't keep us safe from the enemy that's within. There's an enemy that's within, folks, that's bringing down Americans' freedom. And it has moved within the churches, and when the churches had started compromising. I heard a guy this morning, and he was preaching that message, and how true it is. When the churches began to forget who God was and began to compromise and begin to not stand up for what was right, we begin to lose our freedom in this country, folks. We begin to let it slip. See, the only way to keep freedom is to stand for the truth and not compromise. The truth will set you free. But without the truth, you become under bondage. First under the bondage of sin, and then just under the bondage of an overzealous government. And we've come to the place in America, folks, where truth is very unpopular in most places. We had rather compromise and look tolerant than to tell the truth, folks, and make real change. But I thank God this morning for all the years that we've had in America as free people. But we must never forget, we can love this nation, and we must never forget, you know, what price has been paid to keep us free, but we must never forget also the price that God paid through Jesus to make us free indeed. Free, and see, this freedom that Jesus purchased for us, no man can take. It can't be legislated away. It can't be, you know, you can't make the law where you can't be free in Him. And I thank God this morning for that freedom that He bought for us. And you know, the church, it's time we sang that song, Revive Us Again. It's time that you and I felt the responsibility that has been given us because of the gift that has been given us from God. You know, with salvation comes a responsibility, doesn't it? I am responsible to carry the truth that God has given me. I am responsible to be an example that Christ was for me. And see, sometimes the churches compromise and move away from God, and sometimes they don't really compromise, they just settle. Both is dangerous, folks. We can't just settle. A water that becomes stagnant, soon everything in it dies. We must be a moving force for Jesus. See, we cannot be satisfied. And God's brought us a long way. He's brought me a long way. I can look back and see where I was and where He has brought me to, but I'm not home yet, so I know there are still things that He has for us. He's brought us a long way, but we can't be satisfied with where we're at right now and just decide, okay, I'll just sit here till Jesus comes, because there are greater things. There's greater things. He wants to move us into a new place in Him. The church is soon going out of here, folks, and we cannot go out of here. Let me just say it like it is. We can't be raptured today because we're not ready. You know how I know we can't be raptured? We're still here. Amen. The minute we get to where we can be raptured, we will be raptured. Amen. We will be taken out. That was the promise of God. But see, there's a work and there's a move to do. Jesus, when he began his ministry, folks, he was already 30 years old. But everything fell in place. And in the time that God had set up until his crucifixion, he was always moving forward to fulfill the goal that God had set for him in this life. Folks, God has set for each and every one of us a goal to accomplish in this life. He has set the church here to be a light on a hill, a city that cannot be hid. We can't afford to just be satisfied with the blessings we have today. We must be like Isaiah. Send me. Let me be an instrument of your will. And we thank you this morning. We thank you for the grace that he's shown us and for the strength that he's given us all these years. But now is a time of revival and a time of moving forward. Moving forward. Expecting. We should be living in with an air of expectancy. Expecting God to show up and to show out. Waiting for the opportunity to lift him up. If you got your Bibles, turn with me to 1 Corinthians, 2nd chapter. And we're going to start with a verse that I've heard read many, many, many times. And most people stop there. They stop with this verse trying to tell us that we can't know what God has for us. They stop with the 9th verse, but you don't hear the 10th read much. But Paul said this, right to the church at Corinth. But as it is written, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for them that love him. But God hath revealed them unto us by his Spirit. For the Spirit searches all things, yea, the deep things of God. That deep things means the profound mysteries. He said, God give us a spirit that seeks out the profound mysteries that we could know what God has. And I want you to notice there, it didn't say God was preparing something for us. He said that God has prepared for them that love him. Has prepared. God has things, folks, that he wants to get to us that we haven't reached and got yet. But the Spirit, when it begins to search those things of God, it lets us know what God has for us. Then it's time that we begin to expect those things to work in our lives. Amen. If God has set forth healing in the church, we should be healed. If God has set forth salvation, we ought to be saved. If God has set forth the gifts of the Spirit we ought to be operating in them. See, that the Spirit of God will show us the things of God. And God didn't just put it in this book, folks, where we could read it and say, well, that's nice. He put it in this book so we could operate in it. Yes. So that we could operate in what he said. He said, God has revealed them unto us, the profound mysteries, by his Spirit. What is the Spirit of God trying to work in us, folks? Well, let's just read on down. For what man knoweth the things of a man, save the spirit of man which is in him? In other words, he said the spirit of man understands things that we might not even be showing on the outside, but that your spirit knows who you are. He said, even the spirit of man which is in him, even so the things of God knoweth no man, but the Spirit of God. Do you see that? He said there's some things that we're not going to get a hold of unless we are walking in the Spirit that God has given us. He said you can't figure him out in the natural. Amen. Our problem is too many people got God figured out and never got saved. They've listened to college professors and they've listened to religious doctrine and they've got God all figured out. Paul said it couldn't happen without the Spirit of God in you. He said it couldn't happen. Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit which is of God, that we might know the things that are freely given to us of God. What's that Spirit doing in you? He's trying to show us what God has already given us, freely given us. Folks, we walk way below our privileges sometimes because we think we have to. We've looked around at examples of men and we think we have to. He has free, the Spirit is trying to show us what He has freely given unto us. Which things also we speak not in the words which man's wisdom teaches, but which the Holy Ghost teaches, comparing spiritual things with spiritual. Now look at this. But the natural man receives not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. The natural man, that's the man who who can only operate in the environment that he's in. He only knows the laws of the environment that he's in. He said the natural man can't operate in the Spirit of God. But when the Spirit of God is in you, you can operate in the Spirit of God. You know, Jesus came to set us a perfect example. He did. He came to show us what man was supposed to be doing. Jesus did not one miracle outside of the dominion and authority of man. He was man when He came here. And the miracles He did was within the dominion and authority of man. Man, God gave you and I the authority to operate in the power that He sent us. The Spirit of God was not given us so that we could be weak, but so we could be strong. It was not given us so that we could be like everybody else. Is this all right?
That's right.
Most of the time when I come, I preach to myself. I don't know whether y'all listening or not. But when we are, you know, the church has operated just like the natural man. Because somebody told us we could not be what Jesus was. We can't be Jesus. We can't. It's just one of those. But we can walk in His example. He said we could. He said we could. But the church has tried to operate and has operated for so long on the same laws the world operates on. I remember, and you do too, Sister Jane, Sister Marie, Alice, Sister Susie, years ago when we would go out and sell donuts to pay the light bill in the church. We'd sell dinners. Busy all the time. We would sacrifice what we needed so that we could get the church, move the church forward. We didn't know we was operating on the same rules the world was operating on. And we were in trouble all the time. Sold millions of donuts. Women would cook the chicken dinners. Sell the chicken dinners all of the time. Working. Trying to keep the church on its feet. That wasn't what God said. That wasn't what God said. Let me tell you something. It's the same principle when God finally got it through my hard head that He wanted me to teach. You know, I've been teaching for years before it really settled on me. Well, no, this is what God has sent you to do. But when we got the, I can't even think of the number of the thing, but it's a charitable, set up as a charity, tax-exempt status. And the man asked me, he said, "Are you going to solicit funds?" And I said, "No, sir." He looked at me like, "What?" I said, "God told me to teach, and if we don't have the funds to get things done, I will consider He's fired me and I'll quit." See, if I'm working for Him, then it is He. It's His responsibility to see that if I'm doing what He said, it's His responsibility to see that I am equipped to accomplish what He sent me to accomplish. Same way with all of us. Same way with all of His children. Now we can get out there in the world and begin to operate on the world standard and begin to do things that God never told us to do, and we're out there on our own. God's not obligated for anything but His Word. But see, When we came down to the barn, and I'm not talking about Jerry Lackey, I'm talking about what God has done. When we came down to the barn, we determined we wasn't even going to take up an offering. We used to take up a lot of offerings.